Lonely people die earlier. That much most people know. What most people don't know is the margin. The research now puts chronic loneliness in the same risk category as smoking 15 cigarettes a day. Not occasionally lonely, chronically. And the researchers who found this number say we are in the middle of an epidemic, and almost no one is treating it like one. Not a mental health epidemic, a physical one. Because loneliness does not stay in your head. It moves. It gets into your blood, your immune system, your arteries. It rewires the actual structure of your brain. And the most unsettling part is that it does most of its damage quietly, long before you would ever think to call it a problem. This is what loneliness actually is. And by the end of this, you're going to think about it very differently. Start with the biology, because that is where this stops being philosophy and starts being something harder to dismiss. Your body has two modes. The first is calm. Your immune system runs its normal checks. Your inflammation stays low. Your cells do what they are supposed to do. The second is threat. Something is wrong. Something nearby wants to hurt you. Your body floods itself with signals that say, repair can wait. Defense comes first. For most of human history, that second mode was triggered by real physical danger. A predator, a storm, a fight. The threat passed. The alarm turned off, and your body went back to maintenance mode. Loneliness turns on the threat alarm, and then it never turns it off. A chronically lonely person's body runs in low-level emergency mode almost continuously. The immune system stays primed for attack. Inflammation, which is your body's blunt first response to damage, stays elevated. And inflammation that never switches off does not protect you. It destroys you, slowly, quietly from the inside. The link to cardiovascular disease is now well established. Lonely people have significantly higher rates of heart attack and stroke. Their arteries accumulate damage faster. Their blood pressure runs higher, even at rest, even when nothing stressful is happening. Their hearts are working harder than they should for no reason that a standard medical examination would ever catch. But the cardiovascular damage is not even the strangest part. In the early 2000s, a researcher named Steve Cole started looking at what loneliness does at the genetic level. Not the level of organs, not the level of blood pressure readings, the level of individual cells and the instructions they follow. What he found was this. In lonely people, a specific set of genes that control inflammation is turned up, and a specific set of genes that fight viral infection is turned down. Read that again slowly. The body of a lonely person is preparing at the cellular level for physical injury. It is expecting to be wounded. At the same time, it is pulling back its defenses against the kind of threat that actually spreads through a social world. Viruses, bacteria, the invisible things that move between people. The body has made a calculation. If there are no people around, there is no point defending against the things people carry. But there is every reason to prepare for violence. It is an ancient program running inside a modern life, and it is running on the wrong setting. Now look at what it does to the brain itself. Loneliness physically changes the brain, not as a metaphor, as a measurable, documented, structural fact. John Cacioppo, the researcher who spent more of his career on this than almost anyone, found that chronically lonely people show increased activity in the parts of the brain that scan for threats. The brain of a lonely person is, at a biological level, more vigilant, more alert to danger, more likely to read a neutral face as hostile, a neutral comment as a slight, a silence as a rejection. This is where it gets genuinely cruel, because loneliness makes the very thing you need, connection, harder to find and harder to keep. A brain running on high alert reads the social world as more dangerous than it is. It misreads signals. It pulls back at exactly the wrong moments. It protects itself from a wound that hasn't happened yet by creating the conditions that make the wound more likely. Lonely people are not imagining that social interactions feel harder. They are not being oversensitive. Their brain has been physically recalibrated to treat other people as a source of threat, and that recalibration deepens the longer it goes on. Here is the part almost nobody talks about. The pain is real. Evolutionarily, deliberately, specifically real. Loneliness hurts the way hunger hurts. Not as a side effect, not as a malfunction, as a signal. Hunger tells you that your body needs fuel. Physical pain tells you that your body is being damaged. Loneliness tells you that something your survival depends on is missing. For most of our existence as a species, being cut off from the group was one of the most dangerous things that could happen to a person. No shelter you couldn't build alone, no hunt you could run by yourself, no protection from the things that moved in the dark. The group was survival, and your brain knew it, so it built an alarm. The alarm is loneliness. It was never meant to stay on for years. It was meant to hurt enough to make you act, to push you back toward the group, and then turn off once you were safe. The problem is that the modern world has built 1,000 ways for the alarm to stay on indefinitely without ever triggering the action that would turn it off. You can be surrounded by people and still feel it. You can have hundreds of connections online and still feel it. You can live in the most densely packed city in the world and feel it every single day because the alarm is not measuring the number of people around you. It is measuring something subtler and harder to fake. It is measuring whether you feel known. There is a study that comes back to mind here. Researchers followed a group of people over several years and asked them periodically to rate how lonely they felt. They also tracked their health markers across the same period. The finding was not that lonely people got sick and then felt lonely. The loneliness came first. Sometimes years before any measurable physical decline, the brain sounded the alarm, the body started preparing, and then slowly the body started paying for it. Loneliness is not a symptom of a life going wrong. For many people, it is the cause. So look at that again. We are living through what researchers are now calling a loneliness epidemic. Not a metaphorical one with measurable biological consequences spreading quietly through millions of people who would not describe themselves as lonely at all. The alarm is going off. The body is preparing for a threat. The brain is scanning every interaction for danger, and the person sitting inside all of that is going about their day, assuming this is just what life feels like. It doesn't have to. The research on what actually reverses this is consistent and almost frustratingly simple. Not the number of people in your life, the quality, the feeling of being seen, specifically by someone who is paying attention. Even one relationship with that quality changes the biological markers. The inflammation drops, the threat scanning quiets, the genes that were turned up start coming down. The body knows the difference between being near people and being known by them. And it has always known. Long before you were born, long before language, long before any of this, your body was already keeping score. The question is whether you are listening to it.